indeed, much appreciated. Um, First of all, I would like to thank everyone who has organized this seminar. And it's really a good opportunity for me, to express what I know about Afghanistan, and what I know about the relation between Afghanistan and India, and the history, intertwined history of Afghanistan and India, going for thousands and thousands of years. Once again, the moderators fantastically put, trying to organize everything. I appreciate. I truly, honor what you have been doing, and this is good, for Afghanistan, because those people who know little about Afghanistan and they only know Afghanistan through wars and bombs and suicides and terrorism. This is a different window, a different perspective of Afghanistan, a different face of Afghanistan that you're showing to your viewers and people who are seeing directly, indirectly, or through your magazines and other media outlets, that what's going in Afghanistan and how things are, shaping right now in Afghanistan. What's the history of Afghanistan and how things can move towards a better direction.
Dr. Abdullah, I'll just say one sentence and you can carry on from there. Friends, sure. Dr. Abdullah is now talking to us from his mobile. Unfortunately, he cannot talk from his broadband because the broadband in Afghanistan is controlled by Pakistani ISI. So that I wanted to make it clear. So what happens is when he's talking, they monitor it and they could even cut him off. So that is the reason why he is, trying to talk to us from his mobile. And so if there is any lag, if there is any disturbance and cut, please bear with us. That is the problem that we have. That is, the problem we are trying to address. So I hope you all understand the situation from where Dr. Abdullah is speaking to us. Thank you.
Many thanks.
Dr. Abdullah, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. In fact, I was going to explain this, because I'm not using the Afghan telecom internet, because Afghan telecom internet service provider is coming from Pakistan, and usually, when there are discussions, which goes wide and far, which explains about the reality of life, usually it's interrupted. So if it is interrupted, I can assure you I'll come back to you. It might take a few minutes if I'm disconnected, but definitely I'll come back and continue with this, with my, with what I'm talking about. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity. I'll go a little bit about the history of Afghanistan. I think almost everyone knows about the history of Afghanistan because it's so intertwined and interrelated with Indian history that everyone knows, that how Afghanistan is closely related to India. But again, Afghanistan is a wild, treacherous, and it's untamed country where great powers, great nations, fought their great games in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, none of these great powers, conquered Afghanistan. We, as respectful and as guest-loving and as honorful people, we always try to receive people, with honor, guests, and treat them well. But if an invading power comes to Afghanistan, usually the Afghan, they go and stand against them and defeat them. Afghanistan, historically, the Afghans, it's we cannot define the present day Afghanistan because Afghanistan, the map, so many times, it's changed its shape. Every 50 years or a century, the shape of Afghanistan, the geographical shape of Afghanistan changed from one state to another state and from one shape to another shape. But what we call Afghanistan right now, there are the races who live in Afghanistan. We have got Pashtuns, we have got Tajiks, we have got Turkmens, Uzbek, Hazaras, Pashai, and we have got Nuristanis, and we have got Gujars, we have got Hindus, we have got Sikhs, and we have got other small tribes in tranquility in Afghanistan. So far, we gather like brothers, and we always try to defend Afghanistan. When Afghanistan is in peaceful situation, everybody does their work and everybody goes after what usually people they do farming and and also they do harvesting. But when a difficult time comes, all the Afghans, they get together and try to get through the difficult time that comes over. I mean, it's very this region, you know, that now people they call a part of this region, they call them South Asia, and part of this region they call them Central Asia, and part of us we are called the Middle East, and also part of us between the Middle East and the South Asia we respect. And this civilization, it's a combination of different cultures, you know, which got together and made this whole region prosper. Of course, the leaders were the Indians because they were in the handcrafts and other things. So they were dominantly, you know, kind of, you know, rulers and past. And they ruled Afghanistan and this region. I'm not saying only the Afghanistan, but this region, you know, which now it's called, you know, with different names, and there are different borders between these countries. From Porus to Ashoka the Great, you know, we had several kings and several rulers of Hindu. Not necessarily they were all Indians. That's part of them. They were Afghans, and I mean, but they were. They ruled Afghanistan and this region, and the common thing between these rulers of Hindu ethnicity was they always looked onto the progressive side of this region, and they wanted to bring development in the whole region. They try, you know, to bring whatever they had from different parts of the region and transfer it into another part of the civilization. So from the findings or from the development of people who lived in one part of this region to another part of the region. So everybody was equally benefited from this. And then we had the Buddhist influence in Afghanistan. Although we do not, in Afghanistan, we do not, you know, separate the Hindu civilization in Afghanistan and the Buddhist civilization in Afghanistan. Although this Buddhist civilization came much later, or the Buddhist religion came much later than the Hindu religion, which was in Afghanistan. But still, you know, it's an important part of, you know, Bamyan is the greatest, you know, monument which was destroyed by the Taliban with the, with the help of ISIL of Pakistan. But again, you know, the history cannot be just removed. It's not a page of the history book that you can tear off, burn it, and throw it away. It will always remain there. The history will remain there, and it will never be vanished. Surprisingly enough, some people, they might say, you know, well, you are saying that there were Hindus in Afghanistan, and how does it work, and where they were, and how they lived. Even to me, it's surprising because we don't read a lot in our history books nowadays, you know, that who lived where and what they have done. Part of the things, you know, that I could show you, you know, to show, you know, how closely related Afghanistan with the Hindu civilization has been. I'm an antique collector. I like antiques, and I always collect them and keep them for myself because I learn a lot, you know, from these artifacts. They give me a great understanding of what has been happening in this region and how we can benefit, how we can learn from them, what they have done in their time, and how we can benefit from their knowledge and from their you know, understanding of things in this region. To prove, you know, how closely this the Hindu religion or the India or in Afghanistan has been, I've got a few antique artifacts to show you, and then I can start discussing about this, you know, what does it mean and how did this came into form and why and how I'm relating these things to Afghanistan and how I'm relating India with Afghanistan. So the first thing I'm showing you, it's a pot which is a very old one. It's probably between 3,500 to 4,000 years old. It was found in central Afghanistan, and now that area is called the Shahrak district of Ghor province, where I was the governor. In that province, later, the Ghori dynasty, the Ghori kings and emperors.
Dr. Abdullah, your picture is not coming. I think there is some signal issue there.
Sorry?
We are unable to see what you are showing because there seems to
I will
be
show you. I'll show you in a minute. Okay. If you just hold on. And so this spot was found there, and for me, what was surprising, I'm going to show you now that it's also, relevant. If you have a look at this inside of this spot, you can see.
No, we can't see it because your picture is not there. I think you're on now.
Can you see the picture now?
Not yet. There is some signal issue at your end.
Right. Is that okay now?
No, not yet.
Okay, but you mean you can't see my face? My face, only the sound is coming?
Yeah, only the sound is coming. You're right. I mean, your face is frozen. I think your bandwidth is low.
The band is low. Probably it will improve. Maybe it's evening time and there is more.
Yeah. I think maybe once the bandwidth improves, maybe you can show that. Till then, maybe you can continue with your talk.
So there has been a close ties between India and Afghanistan, and these artifacts can prove, that how this civilization thrived in this region, together, not separately, not the Hindu alone or the Indians alone and the Afghans separately be progress, but they progress together. They learn from each other and they exchange knowledge and they exchange what findings they had. And this went on for a long time, until because Afghanistan is on the crossroads of civilization. Like the Indians, they came to Afghanistan, and then the Jews, they came to Afghanistan. A historian, he was talking about there are 10 tribes of the Jews who disappeared from Israel. They were later, they, through the, through some of the artifacts and some of the, the old things that they found, they discovered that this 10 tribes have moved to Afghanistan and they settled in Afghanistan. And there are tribes like Yusufzai and Orakzai, and there are different other tribes, which now they are Pashtun tribes, but initially they're said to be those Jews tribe that they left Israel and they came and they found refuge in Afghanistan in the state here. So similarly, we had the Buddhists came to Afghanistan. We had the Christians came to Afghanistan. We had the Greco-Bactrians came to Afghanistan, and also, because India and Indian civilized Indians were very near, so there was a lot of, movement between present-day Afghanistan and present-day India. So this Afghanistan, since it was the crossroad of civilization, there's a lot of things which are interrelated between Afghanistan and these countries, who came. And then later, then the Islamic the Muslims, they came to Afghanistan around between 7th, 8th century. They entered Afghanistan and they tried to convert Afghans into to become Muslims, but usually in other countries where the Muslims they entered, there was a lot of resistance and there was fights and there were wars, and finally the Muslims, they dominated those non-Muslims, and then they converted them into Islam. But in Afghanistan, it was unlike other countries like Iran and other countries, Syria and Iraq, and today's Iraq and other Babylonian. Afghans, they listened to them, they understand them, and then finally they started converting. There were some fights, there was some resistance, Afghan resistance, and there was some Hindu Afghan king or ruler who fought against the Muslim, the Subuktagians, but and Qais Abdul Rashid and other Muslim leaders. But finally, part of this Afghanistan converted to Islam, and the Islamic civilization started to thrive in this region. But it's not, we did not just take one thing from one, because like I said, you know, people coming from Central Asia, different parts of the world, and they crossed Afghanistan from one part of the world to go to India through Afghanistan, and some people came through Afghanistan, something in which is Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and these countries. So they crossed Afghanistan from India towards Central Asia, and from Russia, and from different places. So Afghanistan has always, you know, has taken a little bit of everything, and they mix them together, and then they reintroduce them, you know, to people, you know, who cross this place. Among these people who crossed, you know, for trades and commerce, we had invaders like Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, and then we had you know, the British. You know, Afghanistan, I mean, it's made in a way that people who travel to Afghanistan, they're welcome, and they're greeted, and they're helped, you know, to cross to Afghanistan, and for whatever other purposes, you know, they are here for trade, commerce, or exchange, cultural exchange, and other objectives. But if it's an invading power like Alexander the Great, he came to Afghanistan and he fought for 4 years in Afghanistan. Finally, he failed to conquer Afghanistan. From northern Afghanistan, he crossed over and he went towards India. And the same thing happened with Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, his brother Alaku Khan, was killed in Afghanistan. And he couldn't conquer Afghanistan, and then, but he massacred Afghans, you know, in the process. And then he went through northern part of Afghanistan. He crossed over to India. Then we had the British. We had 3 wars with the British. Those days, you know, the British, they were the most powerful empire in the world, and we thought, you know, it will be easy for us if we conquer Afghanistan and then cross over to Central Asia, where, you know, they had their own objective. And Russian Tsarist government, they were trying, you know, to advance from that side. In all these 3 attempts, the British, they have failed in Afghanistan. They terribly failed in Afghanistan. And in the first Anglo-Afghan War, which was between 1839 and 1842, this was the first resistance against, first active resistance of a nation against British Empire. And when they were defeated and Muhammad Khan came back on the power, subsequently, you know, the Indians, they got an idea from the Afghans. They said, well, if a tiny nation like Afghanistan can go in war against the British Empire and can break British and you know, kick them out of their country, surely the Indians can do the same, and we will get our independence. So between I think it was 1854 to 1856 or 1857, the Indian started a resistance movement in different parts of India. I'm sure, you know, this has been explained in the history of India. But unlike with Afghans, you know, the British, they were very hard on the Indians, and they hit them so badly, you know, that they had a mass massacre in every province, every district of India, wherever there was a resistance force, there was a huge retaliation from the British side. Because India was very important to them in every way, you know, in terms of trade, commerce, and this was a good geographical kind of, you know, geographical position in Asia. You know, if they hold this, they have a very easy reach to China, they have got a very easy reach to Central Asia, and they have got an easy reach to Middle East and Persia. So they wanted to keep hold of India, and also they were benefiting because India was rich in minerals and everything. So they were taking, you know, everything possible, even the labor, and even at later stages, you know, when they had wars in Africa, and even the, you know, the second, the first World War, they took a lot of Indians and to fight for the British government against, you know, European in the first World War and the Second World War as well. So this way, you know, they were using India in different, in various ways, and they didn't want India to get out of their hand. So they were holding very tight with India, you know, they were not letting it go. This went on and on and on, and then we had a second Anglo-Afghan war, which was during the 1880s, and we again, was succeeded, you know, defeating the British government in Afghanistan. The third Anglo-Afghan war was really a decision-making for the whole region, because the British government, they kept trying, you know, to defeat Afghans, but then King Amanullah Khan was on the power, and he had a persistent kind of strategy to make sure, you know, that the British stop, you know, and stop, you know, stop, you know, attacking Afghanistan, or stop approaching again and again, you know, towards Afghanistan. He had to put an end to this. So this has happened. While this was happening, there were movements, you know, in India, which started with Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and then they had other partners, you know, that which Allama Iqbal, and there were some other Indians, you know, they were together, and they wanted to, they started a movement in India, and they also wanted, they said, this is the time, you know, we need to have a free India. So the struggle, the Afghan have got their independence, but at the same time, you know, the new race of Indians, they started, you know, struggle for a free India, and this went on until 1947. That everyone knows, you know, that India finally got their independence, and then part of India was segregated. It was separated from India, and it was made Pakistan. While the Pakistan was in the process of making, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, we call it the Sarhadi Gandhi, and the Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, they wanted a unified big India, the chunk of India. They didn't want to separate India and separate, you know, into different nations. They tried every possible way, you know, to keep the whole of India together. But the British, they wanted to keep a pie, keep a slice of India for themselves, because they thought that India was very important for them, and they might need it in the future, you know, if they want to stand against Russia or stand against any other power which might rise in this region in Asia. So they need a part of India, you know, to rule, so that they can come back, and then they can use it as a platform, or as a runaway, or a platform where they can again rise against and fight a war against anyone they wanted in this region. So they tried to create a Muslim League, and they told Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was a member of the Indian National Congress, they separated him from the Indian National Congress, and told him that I can give you a separate nation, but if you want to do what we tell you to do. And the history clearly mentions about, you know, this part, you know, that this was not a fair fair kind of distribution of or removing a part of India and creating a new country out of it. I will touch a little bit. I lived with a historian, a Kashmiri historian. His name was Mirza Kamal when I was doing engineering in India. So yeah, I he was a living legend. He was a historian. He wrote the history of Kashmir.
Dr. Abdullah,
One part, I just go a little bit brief of this bit.
Dr. Abdullah,
and one of those milk and Mahatma Gandhi refused to drink that milk.
Dr. Abdullah, I think his connection is lost. I think he'll come back. We'll just wait for him. Your signal is weak, so it broke when you were trying to say you lived with some historian, and then it broke.
Oh, after I said the historian, it broke.
Yeah, we didn't hear his name. We didn't hear his name.
Okay, should I start from there?
Yeah, please.
Okay. But I can't see myself. Can you see me?
We can see you. Yes, we can.
So what Mirza Kamal told me that Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru came to Jammu and they stayed in the fort of Maharaja Hari Singh, or the castle that he had. So Maharaja Hari Singh's wife, he said he was to see Maharaja Hari Singh to the castle or to the fort. Mahatma Gandhi said, you have to release Sheikh Abdullah, then I will drink the milk. So Maharaja Hari Singh ordered to bring Sheikh Abdullah from jail to the castle. When he brought him, then he drank the milk and they sat together and talked about the separation of India and about this whole thing. And then there they decided, Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru told Sheikh Abdullah that there is no force applied on you. If you want to go with Pakistan, it's a free choice. If you want to stay with India, it's a free choice. If you want to go, you can go. If you want to stay here, you will stay here, and you will be, you will be the prime minister. Then it was called the prime minister. Then the prime minister of Jammu and Kashmir. He accepted this, and this was on a free will with the Sheikh Abdullah that accepted this. And the Kashmiri people, they have accepted the same because Sheikh Abdullah was their leader, and he accepted this. So the whole Kashmir obeyed Sheikh Abdullah's commitment to India. Then India has got separated into two parts. It was Pakistan and India, but Afghans, they never accepted Pakistan to be a state. Afghans always refused to accept that Pakistan was a state. It was, we always called them India. In 1949, when this issue of Pakistan as a country went to the United Nations, the only nation which refused to accept that Pakistan was a state was Afghanistan. And Abdurrahman Pajwak was the then the representative of Afghanistan in the United Nations. He clearly mentioned that we do not recognize Pakistan as a nation. I'm not going into the politics of this, but then the Pakistan was born into this region. The cultural relation between Afghanistan and India has been very close. If it is, every cultural aspect of India, because there are so many things which are very close to each other, like food, music, our dresses. I mean, almost everything is so, closely related to one another that you feel, that this is, this is one nation and one country, but it's divided into two parts. I'm not going to, touch more on this because I will leave a little bit of time, for this maybe in the next session if there is one, because it's a vast subject, the relation, the language relation between the Indian languages and Afghan languages, and then our clothes, our food, our music, and all other, relations that we have is very, very closely related. And this needs, a full kind of session, to speak about this. And after the British invasion, the next invasion we had was the Russian invasion in Afghanistan in 1979. This came as a surprise to Afghans because we never thought Russians will invade Afghanistan. We always thought from very far, maybe United States or some, other superpowers will attack Afghanistan. But we never thought, Russians so close to us and they've always been there that they will attack Afghanistan. Russians did attack Afghanistan. And just before, the Russians invaded Afghanistan, some Afghans who were against the progress of Afghanistan, some people they were against democracy in Afghanistan and all the progress that was happening in Afghanistan, and they were not. They wanted, they had personal benefits in mind. They ran away from Afghanistan and they went to Pakistan and they were staying there. ISI, then not very strong as today is, they tried to keep them and try to utilize them for a future gain. And then 1955, sorry, not 1955, 1974, 1974, the ISI has made a group of 5,000 warriors. This is before the Russian invasion of Afghanistan. Made of 5,000 warriors of Pakistani nationals who were Punjabis and different ethnicities, and also some Afghans who live across the Durand line, the Pashtuns. And they were led by these people who ran away from Afghanistan with different pretenses, led by them. They wanted to bring this army of 5,000, send them to Afghanistan to do terrorist activities. But Pakistan's luck struck when Russian and forming, these little political parties very quickly, try to seek in Saudi Arabia and other Islamic nations to gain their sympathy and also get financial support for them. Soon, the British and the Americans, they were involved in this game, and they also, contributed a great deal of financial resources, military hardware, and also different kind of assistance to Pakistan. Or via Pakistan or via ISI to Afghan Mujahideens to topple the communist government in Afghanistan, which was brought by the Russian invasion. So the Russians also was defeated, but with the Russian defeat, Afghans in Pakistan also wanted, to in a way, first they wanted a weak Afghanistan on its one side, where they would be free, to fight on the Indian side on the other. But this taste of, removing a government in Afghanistan and replacing them with their own puppets, this gives them a taste, to turn Afghanistan into a fifth state of Pakistan, like Punjab, Sindh, and Balochistan and Pashtunistan. So they wanted to turn Afghanistan into a state of Pakistan. But this there was a military general, Ayub Khan, and not the Ayub Khan which fought a war, but this is another Ayub Khan which was a member of the ISI. He said, we made a mistake, entering Afghanistan and trying to control Afghanistan like the British and others, and we are paying for the consequences. So the consequences of this was that they lost, they did not lose in terms of bringing the Mujahideens onto the power and weakening Afghanistan, and even putting Pakistani currency as a trading currency in Afghanistan. The telephone lines were from Peshawar and Quetta, which was operated in Kabul and Kandahar and other places. But at the same time, the side effect of this was that it raised an awareness among the Pashtuns and Balochs and Sindhis and Baltistanis and other tribes in Pakistan that, well, I think we have a window of opportunity for freedom, because Baloch, they have been free, in 1947, 11th August 1947, Baloch were free. So Baloch decided, that it's a good opportunity for us, to start a freedom struggle. And at the same time, because there are so many porous borders and everything was open, and Pakistan assumed, Afghanistan was their fifth state. So very quickly, the Baloch, they went to Afghanistan and they got weapons and arms and ammunition from Afghanistan, and they started their struggle. Armed struggle against the Pakistanis, and the same the Pashtuns did, and now the Sindhis and others also start slowly rising against Pakistan. When the Mujahideen got into the power, there was one problem with the Mujahideen. There were too many political parties and they were too scattered. So Pakistanis, they wanted a unified party, one party who would do whatever the ISI or the Pakistani government tells them to do. So they started to organize Hekmatyar, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, Burhanuddin Rabbani, Ustad Sayyaf, and every other leader, but they wouldn't listen to the Pakistanis, and they had internal wars and they had feuds, and there was a lot of civil war going on. So they started this Taliban the Taliban, what do you call it? The holy warriors of Taliban, and they created a new political party or religious party to conquer Afghanistan. This took in the early in the 80s, there was a Maulvi Muhammad Nabi Muhammadi in Pakistan. So they had a very good name because they were doing justice, they were doing like Robin Hood kind of things. So they created Taliban with that name of the Talib group, but they had their own agendas behind. When they started this, Americans quickly, realized that we cannot. Americans did try to because Bredas was the company, the oil company, the Brazilian company who were making a deal, who made a deal with Turkmenistan to take the Turkmen oil from Turkmenistan through Iran and take them out to international markets, to China and India, and sell them internationally. But then Unicol came inside, and then they took Bredas out of the scene, and they Unicol made a contract with Turkmenistan. And when they made the contract with Turkmenistan, the easiest way to get this oil out was through Afghanistan into Pakistan and then out. So for this, they needed Pakistani's help, the ISI's help, to strengthen Taliban in order to bring peace and stability so that the pipeline is safe. And so they could put a pipeline through Afghanistan into Pakistan, and from Pakistan, they will take the oil out and sell them in the world. They started financing ISI once again, to strengthen Taliban. And the Taliban were so strong that they almost conquered almost every part of Afghanistan except few mountaintops, and few pockets of resistance. But then the Taliban had a bigger vision. The Taliban wanted to go to Central Asia, and they wanted to cross, into the Middle East, and they also wanted to go into South Asia and also Pakistan. They will conquer Pakistan, and from one side they will expand to South Asia. From one side they will go to Middle East, and then the other side to Central Asia. And there Pakistan realized, that this is going out of hand, and the United States also, they wanted to control this because this was going way too far away. So then the what do you call it, the 9/11 happened, and this was a good opportunity for the United States and the British and the Pakistanis, to hold back the Taliban and bring a new government into Afghanistan. I'm not going to talk about the China's relation, because it's going to be a very long one, because Chinese, they have a very cunning kind of strategy, because when they enter a place, they enter slowly with small trades, and then they start making the links, and they start putting the pillars, and then they start making the bridge, and they will make it permanent, and they will leave it. And One Belt, One Road, or the CPAC, is one of the better examples I can give you. Started, in 2008, they started, foundation for trade in Afghanistan and Pakistan. But then very soon they moved in and they started investing heavily in border, and they wanted to make the border port, and for their own benefit, and also strengthen Pakistan, and use this port and this One Belt, One Road initiative, to strengthen the economy. And also, they also have expansionist kind of vision through Central Asia, through South Asia, and also, through One Belt, One Road into Eastern Europe. Now it's called Europe, not anymore Eastern Europe, into Western Europe. So that's a kind of expansionism vision, that China has, and this needs a little bit more elaboration, which I'm not going to talk more about on this one. Iran, I will leave for now.
Maybe Dr. Abdullah, you can show the artifacts now. Signal seems to be okay now. Yeah.
Can you see that? Okay. No, now, if you see this, you will see a swastika right in the middle. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So this spot is between 3,500 to 4,000 years old, and this is found in central Afghanistan. And this spot shows a swastika, which clearly indicates, that the Indian civilization had a very strong presence in this region, and not only presence in this region, but they were active and and doing like nowadays we have the research and development on the various issues. They might have religious issues, political issues, cultural, and also technological progress. The second one I'm showing you, this is a bronze artifact, which there's an Indian goddess standing on a lotus. I don't know if you can see the lotus, and also the face of the Indian goddess. This was also found in Central Asia. Central Afghanistan is very mountainous, and it's the highest peaks of Hindu Kush. And usually, their inhabitants are very, even now, there are very limited people living there. I mean, finding these kind of things in those top mountains, it raises questions, how far the Indian went and where they were trying to develop things. This is another part I have. You can see the swastika around here. And also, you can see the snakes. I don't know if you can see clearly, but there are two snakes, it's also, called, it's respected widely in India, and it's, on some Indian gods and goddesses' neck, you will see the snakes, and the swastika you can see here on these spots. I mean, these are used for prayers, these things that I have. The other one I have is this one, which clearly, you can see there are lots of, designs of swastika on this one. And these old, pots and potteries are very old, and these are all clear indications. Now, this one has got a cow, design inside of this little pot. This is very, very, it's not strange, but this is very interesting, to see, how far, and these were used for prayers, like they used to bring flowers and milk and other things, and they would offer to the gods. So this had, kind of designs inside. I don't know if you can see the designs, and they're all related to Indian religion, Hindu religion, and also the Indian culture. Similarly, I have more things to show you. This one, again, it shows, the traces. It used to have a kind of, a knob where we used to, pour, God knows, wine or milk or something. But this is also something like that. And this one too, it's not a buffalo, it's not another, but it's just a cow, that you can see the horns, and you can see, that it's also religious, that was used. And I have many more, to show. This show, how closely we are related, Afghanistan and India, and how closely we have been staying together, and how closely we've been working together. If it was religion, if it was, working on cultural issues, and also even political and social. So that link through history, it has been weakened, and there are several contributors to weakening this these links. Number one, the barriers and the boundaries, and that kept our countries apart. This has had a great contribution. And the later years, when India got its independence, although Afghanistan has always been the most favored nation, I think in 3 years, 1953 or 1951, there was an accord between India and Afghanistan. Jawaharlal Nehru and King of Afghanistan, Zahir Shah, signed an accord that these two countries are the most favored nation, and they do not have taxes. There's a lot of, regulations which are pardoned between these two nations. But unfortunately, what we expect and what the Indians expect, this hasn't materialized for the Indians and Indians and Afghans. Internally, Afghanistan, when there is a war, the consequences are very bad. And for Afghans, it's been 41 years that Afghans have been in war. With internal wars, we had wars with Russia, and after Russia, we had internal wars, but then we had the American invasion, and again, now, again, the internal war, between the Taliban and the Afghan government, as really keeping, Afghans busy in something, that really doesn't contribute towards Afghanistan in progress in any way. So definitely, what we expect, or what we need to understand, that it's important that we, two nations, Afghanistan and India, that we don't call them two nations, but it was one nation with two, now it's got two different names and two different borders, that we have to bring these relations back together. We have to close those gaps. And now these gaps, they have got two ways, to go ahead with this. One way is with the governments. The government of Afghanistan and the government of India, they have to come together and draft ways, to close the relationship between, closer the relationship between Afghanistan and India, which is already, there is Afghans, they always treat India as great friends. And likewise, Indians, they treat Afghans as good friends. And there's a lot of projects India is doing with the government of Afghanistan. So that part has already been covered, and there is a lot of contributions, that the Indian government is doing in Afghanistan. And we are thankful, to all the contributions that they have been doing in the past 20 years in Afghanistan. And prior to that, with different governments, India has always been friend of Afghanistan throughout, throughout the 73 years of its independence. And they always stood by Afghanistan, and Afghanistan always stood by India. Whenever there was hard times, we always stood by each other's government. But what we are lacking, that it's never been addressed, is the civil society between India and Africa, they never got any closer. No, you know, to bring these two close. I mean, there are organizations. I know one organization who's working with a radio station and something, but they are very hidden and they're very polite and they are doing very, you know, small things. I mean, they're not very open, you know, trying to close this gap. In the past, for example, in Dr. Najibullah's era, we had programs like Indian singers, and they used to come to Afghanistan, they used to India, and they used to have cultural programs in India. Also, other events which were, you know, trying to close the ties between India and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, in the recent years, you know, I mean, there is need to say this together and closer. Here, I think a meeting with the Indian ambassador as planner for us. I had with me some 10, 15 governors. We went there for dinner, and this I mentioned with His Excellency Ambassador Vinay Kumar. I told him, you know, that we need to close these ties. We need to travel to India, and the Indians need to travel to come to Afghanistan and find common grounds, you know, in different fields. Now it's important that it has got to be very big. I mean, smaller things can happen. We don't happen on, and then we will take a lot of, you know, what do you call it, herbs from Afghanistan, and we will sell it to the pharmaceutical company in India. Maybe, you know, the shopkeepers and shopkeepers, just the singers or dancers or clothes designers, or, you know, there are many fields, you know, that could, you know, these things can really bring Afghanistan and India much closer. Than we have got a common enemy between us, and to stop their progress, we need to get closer and closer to each other than ever before. Because now, if we don't get closer, somebody else will get closer with them. Now, we didn't get close with Russia. Pakistan has got closer to Russia now. Now you can see they have joint military exercises. They have got joint cultural programs. They've got, you know, a lot of Pakistanis are going and investing in Russia. The Russians are coming and they are buying leather and they're doing trade with Pakistan. So we didn't take benefit of the Russians. Pakistanis took the benefit. We are one of the major importers of everything, commodities, to clothing and everything from Pakistan. And although the quality is not very good, but still we do it because this is the only option we have. Indians are not coming any closer to us. So this depends on the initially, it depends on the society to make programs, to bring the communities together. Once, we link them together, we can let them to continue this relationship. Thank you very much for you. It has been very fantastic, talking. It was very fun, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.